Hello and welcome to A Course in Miracles Help. So today we're going to do workbook lesson number 11. And the image this time is just kind of up there just for a base reference. Make sure that we all kind of understand. Obviously, this is not much different, this one. You probably read it yourself, but my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And this is not necessarily the logical outcome of what we've been talking about so far, but it is the kind of route that we'll take out of what we've kind of constructed by what we've done in our lessons up to this point, because those lessons kind of set this uh, deconstruction of what we believed before, and then now we can really kind of relax with this idea that it's our thoughts that are creating our reality, and that this is something in our control. So this should be a positive thing, I would say, because it's within in what we're doing, but there's also this kind of feeling of perhaps guilt as it would come to you being responsible for some bad things that you could see in the world, obviously. So that's going to be something that comes up, but maybe I'm giving away to I'm not giving away anything too soon, but I think it's, if you've read some of the rest of the book, you'll know that the world is kind of this image that we see, but it has no real effect. So in justifying what you see, you thought it did, but since it doesn't, then it's just going to be like when you wake up in a dream and maybe you did something wrong in the dream, but it doesn't really, there's no, there's nothing that's going to hold to account what you did, right? Because it's just a fearful image. And it's kind of like dreams you had when you were a kid, right? Because when you're a kid, you're just kind of generally uncertain of the world and generally scared, and therefore you have far more fearful dreams. When you're older, you don't have near as many. And the reason this is because you kind of set the parameters of what is possible, and then you try to sort of weed out the negative, and you try to reinforce that these scary visions can't hurt you and whatever else. But we have some visions that we don't think as sort of supernatural, like this picture would be. We could think of those as fearful as fearful as we ever thought those nightmares as children were. But it is important to realize that these nightmares that we have as kids, they just kind of became more in the world in general. We didn't know of all. Most of us were kind of protected from knowing the world in general, what was bad happening in it. Uh, so I don't think it's necessarily we're less fearful when we're older. It's just we have different fears, and we see it more in the world at large. And I think that's a negative way to kind of change, because it's going to affect everybody then, and that's kind of the point. These images are projections from. Think of that mind, the first kind of mirror that it hits. These are things that that mirror has projected, and when it projected them, it would have been doing something outside, perceivably outside of itself. So it makes the bad things outside of itself, so it makes it feel like it's not part of it, which helps alleviate some fear. But the other part, when you project it, you think that you're kind of ejecting out part of yourself, or at least you actually know that you're ejecting out part of yourself. So this would go into contravention to the will of God, as the book kind of says it is. So when you do that, it's always going to make you very fearful, because you set yourself in opposition. And this gets to a lot of the fears that we have of God in general, is because we project that as well. We project that they have anger, that he has anger towards us, even though we've kind of projected our own fear of what we think we did onto him, and wanting to do it back to us in what we perceive. So this is an important thing to overturn, because this is one of the reasons that it keeps promulgating itself in our images that we see, is because it keeps on reaffirming itself, because we see scareful or frightening things in this world that those people see that are watching the fearful images. So today, that's a little bit at the beginning here. We're not going to talk about the actual quote here at first, because we'll get back to that in a second and we'll repeat it. But we'll just read the beginning part here because I think it's kind of important. This is the first idea that we've had that's related to a major phase of the correction process. So we've established that the way we see things before was kind of off. This is the first way, as I mentioned before, sort of like a dam breaking. This is the way we're going to stem the water flow to this one direction, which is the correct one. The reversal of the thinking of the world. It seems as if the world determines what you perceive. So, I mean, I think most of us that are taking materialistic views of the world can identify with this, right? You see things that happen to you, and maybe you thought of yourself as really innocent and loving person at one time, but you say, oh, the world just kind of beats you down and makes you tough and makes you have to defend yourself and kind of changes you. I think that's why we love the innocence of children so much. It's because we kind of miss that part of ourselves that the world we think has kind of changed about ourselves. But the world has no real effect, so that's something we'll get to. Today's idea introduces the concept that your thoughts determine the world you see. Sorry, I should be pulling this along here as we go because it's help keep you on the right track of where I'm actually reading, because I don't know if that's very obvious. Determine the world you see, and that's kind of the most important part, I think. Be glad indeed to practice the idea in its initial form, for this idea is the release made sure. The key is forgiveness. To forgiveness lies in it. So you realize that you're the one doing the projecting, you're the one creating these images, and you can forgive yourself for doing this because it's got no effect. You didn't hurt anyone. It has no real effect. It's just like a dream where you did something you think you did wrong. The reason you did what you think you did is because probably you were scared, right? But all those things are not really possible because, I mean, the state of perfection that you're supposed to be actually in, it's not plausible to happen. And you'll realize that once you wake, right? This great awakening that a lot of these mystic people have been talking about for a very long time. It's all related to this, right? Okay, so number one is begin with your eyes closed and repeat the idea slowly to yourself. So close your eyes. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Then open your eyes and look about. So you do this with your eyes closed, kind of just sink into the idea. And then when you open your eyes, look about, near and far, up and down, anywhere. During the minute or so of using the idea, merely repeat it to yourself. So quietly in your mind, or you could say it if you'd like. Being sure to do so without haste and without a sense of urgency or effort. You're trying to detach yourself from any feelings about these things. It's just, like I say, if it has no effect, then why are we worried about it? So you shouldn't be showing any fear or concern about what you're saying right now. To do these exercises for maximum benefit, the eyes should move from one thing to the other fairly rapidly, since they should not linger on anything in particular. The words, however, should be used in an unhurried, even leisurely fashion. The introduction to the idea in particular should be practiced as casually as possible. It contains the foundation for the peace, relaxation, and freedom from worry that you are trying to achieve. So one of your characteristics that you're trying to reconnect with is this peace feeling. And it's really hard to feel in the world that we see this peaceful feeling because it doesn't feel like you ever are stopped from being attacked in it, right? It feels like you constantly can't relax. You can sleep at night, but when you wake up again, there's going to be a million things to concern you and to threaten you and everything else. But once you realize this peace, relaxation, and freedom will be the natural consequence of it. This is your inheritance, is this feeling of peace. And beyond touching, it can't be harmed because that would be against the will. On the concluding of the exercise, close your eyes and repeat the idea once more slowly to yourself. So kind of go in, basically just go in, say it, closing your eyes, and then open your eyes, look about, leisurely, relaxed, and then close your eyes and say the same thing. It's just like you almost like frame an episode, right? So you start your eyes closed, and then everything you see in that time is going to be falling into that sort of idea under that veil of what you're trying to perceive it as. And then you're going to kind of close your eyes again and say it again just to reaffirm that it was. And then this is kind of like a window that you can kind of build on later. So 3 to 5 times a day, depending on your comfort level. 3 is kind of necessary. 5 is better if you can. If it causes you a lot of resistance and a lot of issues, then 3 is fine. But try to space them out as much as you can as well. So I think that's kind of goes without saying at this point. Anyway, good luck to you, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.